Good evening and welcome. My name is Taylor Kingman, and as President of the Board of Trustees of the San Angelo Independent School District, I would like to welcome all of you who are present at tonight's regular board meeting. I also welcome those of you who are watching the recording of this meeting online or on our public access channel. We appreciate your interest in the activities of our students and the business of SAISD. All items that will be discussed at our meeting this evening have been posted as required by state law. Also, as you may be aware, our board meets a minimum of 2 times per month, and most, if not all, items on the agenda this evening have previously been discussed at our pre-agenda board workshop. As members of the SAISD Board of Trustees, we are here to set goals, listen to reports from our superintendent, approve budgets, contracts, and personnel appointments, and to make policy for the district. Please keep in mind that our meeting is a meeting of the Board of Trustees held in public and not a meeting of the public. However, we have a public comment item on every one of our meeting agendas that allows anyone present who wishes to speak to our board team on an item not on our action agenda or an action item on the agenda an opportunity to do so. Please provide your name and contact information and the specific topic you wish to address on the public comment form located in the back of the room should you want to speak on an issue not on our action agenda. Please listen carefully and comply with the following rules so that we can move through this part of the meeting efficiently. Each speaker will be given a total of 3 minutes. The district will provide an official timekeeper. You'll be notified when your time is up. Please respect the privacy of others and refrain from identifying students, employees, or other community members by name. Disruption of the meeting will not be tolerated at any time. Comments on any subject, whether positive or negative, must be courteous and respectful, and comments are limited to the specific topic you indicated on the form you filled out. Any speaker with a specific complaint about a district employee decision or operational issue should present that complaint through the appropriate mechanism, which is the district's formal grievance process. If you have a pending grievance being processed by the district, please remember you're not permitted to speak about the grievance during public comment. Also, please understand, if you speak to us on an item not on our action agenda, that the board cannot reply to you except to thank you for your comments, since the matter has not been posted for discussion. In compliance with state law, these proceedings are recorded and will become part of SAISD's permanent legal record. In order that the recording will adequately reflect the proceedings, I ask that you please refrain from talking while others are speaking. And I also ask, as I remind my fellow board members, to please turn off or silence your cell phones. Again, thank you for being here and for your support of SAISD. We do have a quorum this evening. We have 6 out of 7 of us present this evening. And we're going to move forward with our invocation. And Kevin Huddleston is going to help us with that this evening. Special guest.
For 38 years, Shelley and I have been honored to be a part of this community. And tonight is part of our final time here. We could not be more honored to have had 38 years of this incredible community in this school district. And we thank the Board of Trustees now and those who have come before you. Let's pray. Father, we are gathered here tonight to take care of important business, and that is the business of our children. Father, a lot of times there are other things that get in the way and cloud the important business of our children. And I ask that you would forgive us when we let those things rise above the most important thing that we have, and that is the care and the nurture and the education of the children that you place in our care. Fathers, tonight as we gather, as I look at these students that are here, I pray that you would plant within them great dreams and imagination of how you will work in their lives and of all the good things that you will do through them in the years to come. And Father, for the rest of us, help us take the important responsibility that you have placed before us to be people of kindness, of truth, of goodness, and help us to nurture them. God, I pray that you'll be with this community, that this community, the San Angelo community, will step up, will rally around our children, and we'll dream great dreams of the future. Father, thank you for the gifts that you've given us. I pray that we will use those gifts wisely. In the name of Jesus, we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Now we have some students from Bel Air Elementary. We have Efrain Varela, Carson Vasquez, Carly Vasquez, Magnolia Ramsey, Gabrielle Yanez, Zadrian Yanez, and Ayla Eaton. If y'all will all come up, we're going to line up and say our pledges. Everyone will stand with them and us as we say the pledges.
Salute flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. All right, we're going to move forward with our agenda now. First, we have some recognitions, and Suncha is up there to give us some recognitions for San Angelo Reads.
Good evening, Dr. Kingman, Dr. Moran, and members of the board. Since its launch 5 years ago, our San Angelo Reads Literacy Initiative has received incredible support, and this year's Reads Day events again demonstrated its powerful impact. San Angelo Reads continues to inspire and unite our community. Tonight, we want to recognize the many community partners whose generosity made both San Angelo Reads Day on December 4th and the North Pole pop-up event on December 5th such a success. This year, we were thrilled to have more than 50 community partners join us in championing literacy during our 2-day celebration of literacy. If you'll direct your attention to the monitors, you'll see the names of our wonderful businesses and organizations that volunteered. A special thank you goes to HEB, our San Angelo Reads Day partner, for gifting every SAISD third grade student a copy of The Bad Guys, and spreading even more joy with HE Buddy at Bradford Elementary. Additionally, 36 volunteers visited other elementaries across the district to host special read-alouds, making the day even more memorable. Then on the following day, those same community partners, along with 11 SAISD departments, braved the chilly weather to bring our North Pole pop-up event to life. Despite the wind and the cold, it was wonderful to see everyone enjoying the festive activities and the joy on the children's faces. The success of San Angelo Reads Day would not have been possible without the partners who share our dedication to public education and the future of our students. We are deeply grateful, and we would just like to take a moment and tell them thank you. So please join me in thanking these incredible partners for their unwavering commitment to literacy and their generous support of our San Angelo community.
Our next recognition this evening is for Shelley Huddleston, Chief of School Leadership, and Dr. Moran is going to start us off with that.
Well, and I'll keep my comments brief so the board can make their comments, but some of you were at our reception this afternoon for Shelley, and Kevin, we're glad you were able to join. It just seemed like a fitting way to do this tonight. It worked out well. But Shelley Huddleston has served our district for 29 years as an English teacher at Glenn and Central, an instructional coach, an assistant principal at Central, a principal at Bonham, and now at the administrative offices for quite some time. And her steady hand, her calm demeanor, and wisdom have really helped our district. And so Shelley, We've given you lots of comments and thanks tonight. This is just another to add in front of the public, and just to say on behalf of our school district, thank you for 29 years. Thank you for being so dependable and faithful and wise in your service to SAISD. Thank you.
Any further board comments?
I would, since I wasn't able to come to your reception, to Shelley and to Kevin, I just wanted to thank you both for all that you've done for our community. Both of you have been a big part of the community in lots of different areas where I participate. So I just wanted to let you know how much I appreciate everything that you both have done, and you'll be missed in San Angelo, and especially for San Angelo ISD.
I'll speak to Shelley and Kevin. My love for you runs deep, and I believe with everything I have that God gave you both gifts, and you have used them to your full ability, and I know that when you leave here, you'll continue that path. So thank you both, and thank you, Shelley, for the years that we worked together. I still remember you walking, I was teaching, and you came to Glenn as a student teacher because you decided that's what you were going to do, and boy, did you do it, and you did it well. So thank you. You'll be missed.
Obviously, we did have a reception this afternoon, and people who've worked with you a lot longer than I have said a lot nicer things than I can ever say out loud. But what I will say is that in the 8 years I've known you working here on this board, is that you have put this district above any personal or other desire. You've made decisions, you've made recommendations, and you have put this district above anything else professionally. And I just want to thank you for your commitment. And like everyone else has said, your steady hand, and you're going to be missed here in San Angelo ISD. All right. Any other? So Gerard's going to cry, so we're going to keep moving. All right. So thank you, Shelley. Moving forward with public comments. No one has signed up this evening, so we're going to move forward with our information items. And we're going to start with an information item from our Facility Advisory Committee, and I think Debbie Cross is going to start us off on that.
Thank you very much for giving us the time this evening to share with you what we've been working on. My name is Debbie Cross, and I am a member of the Facility Advisory Committee. And I know a lot of you are probably wondering who and what is the Facility Advisory Committee. Well, let me just show you. Would all of our committee members please stand up, the ones that are here? We had a group of 60 plus, very diverse group of people who are community volunteers, who were nominated by their peers and were selected to be on this very important committee, and I applaud all of them for all their work. So thank y'all very much. There are doctors, lawyers, educators, business owners, moms, dads, granddads, grandparents on this committee, and we all have a commitment to this community and to our schools and to our children. We all accepted this task, and we took it very seriously, and we worked hard. We met together, we ate together, we gathered, we toured campuses, we collaborated, we made new friends, and we strengthened old friendships. We became educated and informed of the infrastructural and educational needs of our district. I would like to thank Dr. Moran and our facilitator, Alma Moeller, for presenting the committee with an opportunity to shape the future of San Angelo and SAISD and the thousands of eager children who will benefit from our efforts. We believe the committee has put together a fiscally responsible bond referendum for consideration by the board. I was starting to look back and counting the years that I've been a volunteer for the SAISD, and it's over 35 years I've been doing something with the school district. Farrah knows. And I have enjoyed every bit of it, and I highly respect our teachers, our administrators, and our board for all you do for our children, and thank you very much. I'm a product of SAISD. I attended Austin Elementary, McGill Elementary, Robert E. Lee Junior High, Central High School, and I'm a graduate of 1975. Central was one of the schools that we toured, and we saw the Sarah Barnhart Theater, we saw the gym, we saw the practice areas, the locker rooms, and just a general tour of the campus. And it hit me as we were walking around, except for the new administration building, Central has not changed in over 50 years. It is in dire need of updating, and let me tell you, it is a security nightmare, that school is. So we need to do better for our children, and this is one of the things that was top priority in our decision. I have 2 grandchildren that attend Central High School. One's a junior and one's a senior. And if any of you here attended Central High School, you remember walking in ankle deep or higher water, getting to classes when it rained. Well, let me tell you, our students are still walking in ankle deep or higher water to get to their classes. Our students deserve better, our community deserves better, and that's what we are here to do. We believe we have put together a good plan, and we need to band together and be the solution for our kiddos. Thank you for your time, and I would like to introduce to you my friend and fellow committee member, Trey Holmes, who will inform you on how this committee worked. Thank you, and Merry Christmas.
Got to raise the mic just a little bit, but don't worry, Mary, I'll put it back down for you. So the ladies will bring the seriousness and the facts, and I'm here for the color, as most of y'all who probably know me. But I have to say, speaking of color, thank you to those of you who read your emails and wore blue in support of this. I'm so happy that my wife helped me pick out a blue tie to wear to this event. But, you know, speaking of blue, we saw these students here that were here earlier tonight to lead us in the pledges of allegiance, and they were the focus of our group. And as a matter of fact, if we were to turn and we were to read the mission and vision, which now I can't read it without my glasses on. Oh, good. Okay. So I was going to try to impress y'all with how far-sighted I am, but it says the mission of San Angelo Independent School District is to engage all students in a relevant and inspiring education that produces future-ready graduates. And I say those words with emphasis because that's what we focused on, our students and the future of San Angelo. And we want it to be as bright as possible. And so Debbie did mention that there was a diverse group, people from all walks of life in San Angelo. Some of us who grew up here and went to Central High School and all the different schools before I was even born. And then those of us who are newer. Pardon me. My wife has to live with me, by the way. So anyway, all the way to those of us who are newer arrivals to this community, such as myself. But throughout our time together, we learned about school finance. We learned about facilities. We learned about a little bit about educational theory. We saw how property taxes work to fund our schools and how the state, I'm going to use the word manipulates how they get dispersed. So I'm super thankful that we passed Prop A last November to free up more money for us. But as we were learning all these things and meeting, every couple of weeks for the last few months, we did that. We toured all the facilities of SAISD. So we walked through the elementary schools, we walked through the middle schools, we walked through the high schools, and saw the area of Central that becomes a river. And I'm not going to say all the things we saw. Well, I'll say this: we saw lots of good things, and then we saw some things that need to be fixed. And that's what we were there to talk about, and to learn about. And so, as we went through these past few months, and we gelled into somewhat cohesive units, I think, priorities began to form. Some of those were already there and were already listed for us. But really what it comes down to is we saw three things that rose to the surface over the last few months. By the way, am I supposed to be addressing y'all or these? So nobody answered, so I'll just keep going. But so three things arose to the top. Number one, and Debbie mentioned this, she said, safe children. We want our children to be safe, and we want the educators and those who serve them also to be able to come to work and know that they're going to be safe. Number two, and I know there's some of y'all in this room that will appreciate this more than others, we want lower taxes in the long run. And that was one of the things that we did discuss, when it comes to property taxes and how do we lower those. Most of us here in San Angelo have learned that the tax base consists of residential properties, which is why we all get mad about our property taxes. So how do we expand that? Well, we attract more businesses, and we do that by investing in the future of our schools, because Michael Looney's not here tonight, but he'd be one of the first ones to tell you that when the Economic Development Corporation gets a phone call from a business that's already been looking at San Angelo for months and months, one of the first things they talk about is our schools. And he said you would be amazed at what they know about our schools and what they can tell us more than we even know. And so we want lower taxes in the long run, but most importantly, we want strong schools for a strong future. And you guys know, everybody who was on the committee and some of you others may have seen some of the lists that we went over, all the projects. We weren't handed packets to vote on and to discuss. We were just given lists of projects that were prioritized by people much smarter than I am. But we were given these pages and pages, and we went through and we deliberated and we voted on them. But if we took everything that had been shown to us, everything on the list and everything on those pages, and said, hey, we want to do it all, and we want y'all to look at a bond, that price would be $650 million. Approximately $650 million. I think I heard some hmms out there, because we all recognize that $650 million is not pocket change. It is quite a substantial sum. And the most fun part about getting to tell y'all the $650 or even stay at that number is I don't live in SAISD. I don't. As a matter of fact, I live in Cristoval, Texas, and let me say this, really, I sleep in Cristoval, Texas beside my wife, and then I shower in Cristoval, Texas, so my wife will allow me to continue to sleep beside her. But San Angelo, it's where I work, where I play, where I worship, and really where my life is. And you may ask when I say this, and I've told you that I don't live in SAISD, you may say, well, why does a man who doesn't live in the school district and doesn't have children here, I'm going to say, yet, why do I care? Because I recognize that as San Angelo goes, so goes the rest of the Concho Valley. So goes the rest of the Concho Valley. And my roots in the Concho Valley run deep. Not only do I look back at my roots, I look to the future, just as the rest of us. And I don't know if y'all remember this, but I was surprised to learn that the projects we looked at, are not 10, 20-year fixes, but they're 75 years worth of improvements. That's how long they're designed to last. That's 5 generations. That's not just our children and grandchildren, or future children and grandchildren in my case, but it is our great-great-grandchildren. Think about that for just a moment. It's our great-great-grandchildren. And speaking of great-great-grandchildren, my great-great-grandfather was born in 1872. He and his family migrated shortly thereafter. Actually, he was born in the back of a covered wagon on the way to the Concho Valley, believe it or not. And when he became an adult, he ranched and farmed not too far from where we are. And I've always heard lots and lots of stories about Papa Hickman, all right, when I was growing up. And I heard about how he had these 2 mules that he plowed with, because technology was where it was when he began to farm and ranch and grow a family. I also heard, this will tell you a little bit about his financial condition, that he and my great-great-grandmother had more children than they had furniture. That was the joke my grandmother used to say. Some of y'all I could see got that. But he plowed with these mules, and then, and he also was very, very frugal. He was a man that didn't spend money, didn't have a lot of money, didn't spend money. But one of the things that he invested in after World War I was a tractor. He got rid of the mules and he invested in a tractor. And to him, I don't know what the cost was. I've never heard, I've never asked. I don't know what the cost was, but I'm sure that it was a small fortune, kind of like we hear $650 million and we think that's a small fortune. But he was willing to pay that to invest in his future, really to pay the price of progress. Now, the best part about this and the good news about it is that investing in San Angelo's future through this bond isn't going to require $650 million. I'm going to leave it up to Miss Mary Castanuela, I hope I pronounced your name correctly, to tell you more about that and to deliver the good news. I told you I'd lower it
Yes,
down.
thank you, Trey. Yeah, there's a big difference there, as you can see on height-wise. But thank you, Trey. Good evening, everyone. Today, I want to talk to you about the proposed projects and continue the discussion on why these are crucial for our schools, our students, and the overall growth and prosperity of our community. The heart of these proposed projects is our students, current and future students. Every child deserves a safe, modern, and well-equipped learning environment that fosters academic achievement and personal growth. Unfortunately, many of our schools are aging with outdated infrastructure that no longer meets the demands of the 21st century education system. Here is a list of proposed projects that we as a Facility Advisory Committee considered, discussed, and voted on. As you can tell, it is a lengthy list that was developed throughout our time together, as mentioned by Debbie and Trey. Through a thorough and collaborative process, we discussed the proposed projects extensively, focusing on what was most urgent and impactful for our schools and community. After careful evaluation, we arrived at this number, a little over $400 million, which is a lot better than what Trey mentioned earlier, right? A lot better. But this amount reflects the scope of work needed to address critical infrastructure needs, enhance educational spaces, and prepare for future growth while being mindful of financial responsibility. By acting now, we can address these needs before they become more costly emergencies. Delaying repairs and upgrades will only result in higher expenses down the road. Let's consider the alternative. If we do not move forward with these proposed projects, we're just maintaining the status quo, but we're also falling further behind. Think back to Trey's story about his grandfather replacing the mills with a tractor. I think immediately about when I wanted to keep my previous car forever because I loved that car. It had a CD player and a cassette player. Now, mind you, only us folks that were born in the 1900s know what those contraptions are, and we appreciate them. Just saying. But, this is the big but, I eventually had to accept that my car, first of all, was a gas guzzler. The oil changes were getting more expensive because guess what? Even the automobile oil has evolved. But on top of that, it did not provide those safety features such as the rear view camera that I really needed throughout all my travels. It was time to invest in a newer car to save money in the long run, but honestly, it was to keep my family and myself safe. There comes a time that we have to be mindful of what is best for our students, our families, and our community. And ladies and gentlemen, that time has arrived. Without these critical improvements, our schools will continue to deteriorate, jeopardizing the quality of education we can provide. Our students deserve better. They deserve schools that inspire them to dream big and achieve their potential. We evaluated each proposed project based on its impact on safety, educational quality, and long-term benefits to our schools and community. First and foremost, we prioritized the safety of all of our students. Ensuring that our schools are secure and equipped to handle emergencies is at the core of this proposal. But more importantly, being proactive to deter those security issues and emergencies is the key. So circling back to what Trey mentioned earlier with Glenn Middle School, we observed multiple classrooms that are literally coming apart at the seams. We saw where the wall has detached from the ceiling, and there leaves huge gaps where rain doesn't just drip down, it runs down the walls. We saw walls that were covered in mold. And while we were visiting those classrooms, we immediately noticed the dampness. And we even had one of our committee members have a reaction to it where her asthma kicked in. Now imagine that was just us there being a few minutes in those classrooms. I cannot even imagine our students and teachers being in those classrooms for hours, day in and day out. Now, we're going to turn our focus to not only providing more secure learning environments, but also making them more conducive for all of our students from the elementary all the way up to the high school. So campus additions and renovations projects. By optimizing the use of space and resources, we can warrant that every child has access to a comfortable and appropriately sized learning environment and create a more efficient and equitable distribution of resources. Now, these learning environments need to be appropriately maintained. So this leads us to another big concern. Many of our schools require major repairs to their HVAC systems, plumbing, utility repairs, and electrical infrastructure to meet current safety and operational standards. These upgrades ensure that classrooms are safe, clean, and conducive to learning, while also addressing potential hazards posed by aging facilities. One of the most critical components is replacing HVAC systems that are over 20 years old. That's a long time. That was an eye-opener for us. Now, these outdated systems not only struggle to maintain consistent temperatures, but also fail to adequately filter air, leading to discomfort and potential health risk for students and staff. New energy-efficient HVAC systems will provide clean, temperature-controlled environments that promote focus, reduce distractions, and create optimal conditions for learning. Proper climate control also ensures that classrooms remain operational during extreme weather, reducing disruptions throughout the school day. So just think, August, West Texas heat. That's all I gotta say. Period. Now, again, this reminds me when I made the decision to trade in my previous car for a newer car. Along with those better safety features, other optimal features such as seat warmers help me to be more focused as a driver versus fidgeting with the temperature controls and possibly causing an accident. So this allowed me to drive further in my life in a safe manner. So think about what are we providing to our students here. So just as a reliable, fuel-efficient car ensures a smoother, safer, and more comfortable ride, a modern HVAC system ensures a consistent, comfortable, and healthy, keyword, healthy environment where students can focus and thrive. New systems will create the ideal conditions for concentration, participation, and overall well-being. Now, moving on to athletic renovations and improvement projects. Renovating these spaces is critical not only for hygiene, but for safety as well. Updated facilities will ensure proper ventilation, prevent accidents caused by aging fixtures, and create a secure environment for our students. For example, the locker room for the cheerleaders at Central also serves as a public restroom for events, which I had no clue until we toured that. So these renovations will not only protect our students, but also provide a better facility for our parents, families, community members, and out-of-town visitors. Now, adding lights to practice fields and replacing aging turf will significantly enhance safety for our student athletes. Proper lighting ensures that practices and events held during early morning or evening hours are well lit, reducing the risk of accidents. Replacing worn-out turf is equally vital as it minimizes injuries caused by uneven or deteriorated playing surfaces. These improvements prioritize the well-being of all of our students while also allowing the extended use of these facilities, not by just our school, but also by our community. Again, safety was the driving force behind these proposed projects. Now, here is the list of projects that were not approved. So with everything on the table, this is the list of projects that as a committee we considered and discussed extensively, but we felt they would not be as impactful for our students and educators and our community as the others. So, strong schools make strong communities, which leads to a strong future. When we invest in our schools, we invest in the future workforce, leaders, and innovators of our community. High-quality schools increase the value of our community, attract families, and draw businesses to our area, strengthening that local economy, just like Trey mentioned. These investments aren't just about education. They are for our future generations of families. They are about community pride and, most importantly, unity. I now ask all present Facility Advisory Committee members to please stand. Here stand before you retired teachers, realtors, business owners, medical personnel, pastors, longtime San Angelo residents, educators, aunts, uncles, parents, grandparents, formally requesting and respectfully requesting the school board to accept these proposed projects. We are San Angelo. Let's invest in our children, in our community, in ourselves, in our future. Thank you. Any questions?
Well, first off, I just want to thank you all for presenting this evening and the entirety of the committee, those who can be here tonight and those who couldn't. I know one of them's coaching my son's basketball team. I just want to thank you all for the time and the commitment, because learning school finance, looking at facilities, trying to understand why the district hasn't done some of these things previously, where the money has been and is, it takes time and it takes a lot of hours. And those are hours that you all did not spend with your families, did not spend doing things that were much more fun than looking at our facilities. So first of all, I just want to thank all of y'all for that commitment. As a board, obviously we will need to look at all of these recommendations, and things that came to my mind is that we need to then ask our administrative team to make sure that we have a picture for our community of what these projects really look like in reality for our children and our parents and our community members who are going to have to pay for it. And then we also need to look at what our district will look like if we don't do it. Because this isn't just looking at what it could be, it's also looking at what it could be or would be if we don't do these things. Because I do know that anyone who's done anything over the last 5 years knows that prices have gone up, and delaying things have only increased the cost of what we can do for a dollar. So we need to look at that, and then we also need to look at our district. We need to look ourselves in the mirror, and we need to look our public in the mirror and say, how are we going to maintain these facilities in such a way, and then what will our plan be through our budget over the next 10 years to make sure that we are keeping these facilities in a status that is exemplary for our students. And we need to make sure that our public understands that we have a plan for that. And not that we haven't been doing that, but we don't always show the public how we're doing that. And I think if we're going to go ask for the trust of our citizens to vote yes on this, we have to show them the steps that we're willing to take to make sure and they understand how we're doing that. But most of all, I want to thank y'all all for being here this evening and for the work you've done at this far, and understand that obviously we have some work to do now from the work that y'all have given us, and we appreciate and we very much appreciate that. Any other board comments?
I just want to say thank you to all of y'all that participated in this, because like Dr. Kingman said, it takes a lot of time, and we appreciate the time that you gave to us and to the kids and to the future of this district. So thank you again.
And I have the privilege of being a bystander in some of these meetings, and I saw actually the hard work that was taking place and the intention and the thought that went into this process, that you saw some things that you see that you needed to act on, and you guys were making the plan not only for you to see it to the end, but for us to help us in our quest to make lives better for kids in this district. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your time and consideration.
Thank you all. All right. We are going to move forward with information items, and next we'll have Jason Henry come up with a construction update.
Thank you for having me here tonight. I'd like to introduce RJ Lopez from Park Hill Architects, and he's going to go over our major construction projects.
Thanks, Jason. Dr. Kingman, Dr. Moran, and Board of Directors, it's great to be here tonight. I love following up the recommendation. It's been a real privilege to work with your community members. They were really selfless, and they were hardworking, and the questions that they asked, they really didn't hold anything back, which I think is what you need, because that's what's going to happen when it goes to the community. So I really appreciate their hard work as well. And I see this happen a lot, and this process doesn't always go as positive as it did with this group. And I think you owe a lot of that to your community and their willingness to work together to do hard things. So, all right, now for the current projects. That is based on work we started a few years ago. McGill Elementary School. We have the certificate of occupancy. Everything has passed building inspections. We have a few more punch list items for McGill, but it's well down the road. The last portion of that project will be the demolition of the Building D, one of the oldest facilities on campus that's still being used for classrooms, I believe is for kindergarten students, but now they're able to move into a new facility, and you're able to remove that classroom from your campus. So it'll be exciting to see that happen. The landscaping and irrigation was completed this past Friday, and we have a few more items that'll be generated on the punch list where we go through and mark, every sprinkler head that we see has a problem or any cracks in the sidewalk or any issues, which right now we haven't found a lot of those, so that's good. But we make sure that they provide top-notch quality as you would expect in a brand-new facility. So we're going to make sure that's done right. You can see the photos of the newly completed McGill Elementary School. If you remember some of the renderings from about a year to a year and a half ago, this is almost exactly like what we talked about. So the floor plan is what we planned for, the design is what we planned for, and now it's here to be used for students. So it's an exciting time. See last touches, the landscaping going in. And then some of the new hallways, and there's some really nice special spaces that we'll be able to show next time of the cafeteria and some of the commons areas that really show well and I think will function exceptionally for the students and teachers. All right, and then the second project, Fannin Elementary School. The building is complete, it's being used, but the site, playground, they're still working on the drainage system between the new addition and the gym. They're still wrapping up some of the site fencing. If you've been out there, obviously it's quite a bit more complicated site than McGill Elementary School, and so they're working through that. The play court and the basketball court and the dock for the gym is nearly complete, and then just finishing up all the handrails for the ramps and stairs is still underway. And so we're going to continue to try to push on them because they really can finish before students come back. They just have to get out there and get it done. So we've got a couple pictures there showing, and there's even been some work done since this picture was taken there. But you can kind of see that basketball court on the right there, and then some of the tree and landscape going in, some of those stone benches that surround the basketball court so the students can have a place to sit. And then just showing that entryway with that ramp there, and some of those wood rails have already come out, and they're installing metal railing and hopefully finishing up within the next couple of weeks out there. And that's where we're at. So hopefully the next time we do this construction update in January, I'll be able to tell you you have 2 completed schools, and now we can start looking towards the next phase and the next step for San Angelo ISD. Any questions about current construction?
Any questions? And McGill, we're using the classrooms already, correct? Students moved this week?
Yes.
And the cafeteria will be up and running after, today? They use the cafeteria?
Yes. Yeah.
Fantastic. So
it's moving in the right direction, that's
absolutely.
for sure.
Okay. And on budget?
Yes, on budget.
Okay.
On budget and as planned.
Perfect.
One more comment. RJ, I know that, I don't know if the public realizes it, but these 2 projects were a pretty good reach for the board because they were accomplished out of a fund balance, out of the M&O budget that we normally have. So these projects right here are few and far between when we can gather enough funds to do major projects like this. So again, the urgency for some potential bond money to complete some other facilities that we really need to work on.
Yeah, projects of these sizes are almost impossible to do out of fund balance, and it's pretty rare that we work with districts across the state, and we don't have many projects of this size that they're able to do out of fund balance. So it's a huge win to be able to do what you've done. But obviously, that's really the top level of what's able to be accomplished out of fund balance.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yep. Thank y'all.
Next, we're going to move on to an update on academic programs, and Dr. Farrah Gomez is going to give us that update.
Dr. Kingman, Dr. Moran, and Dr. Brandon, I'm happy to go now, but do we have some visitors for the next item that might like to go before hearing me talk about instructional materials and House bill updates? I mean, I'm going to be here the whole time, but you guys might be traveling.
Thank you, Dr. Gomez. Good. We're going to move forward with item D. And we'll come back to Dr. Gomez, and we're going to do a value study appeals services update.
Dr. Kingman, Dr. Moran, Board of Trustees, Linebarger has been representing school districts, cities, and other political entities in all ad valorem taxation matters, including collections, since 1976. For over 48 years, Linebarger has established a reputation for unmatched experience, quality of work that generates tangible results. And you're going to hear about some of those tangible results this evening. And we have the pleasure of having with us from Linebarger, Mr. Bill Messick.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good evening. It's a pleasure to be here. To update you on the Comptroller's Property Value Study, to give you a little historical background, starting back in 2021, San Angelo ISD did not pass the property value study, but they were eligible for first-year grace, so no funds were at risk, and that's the way the system's designed. When you do fail a property value study, the comptroller immediately does a study the next year. They normally skip every other year. So San Angelo had another study in 2022, and they failed in 2022, and they got 2 years of grace, and that's all the grace that a school district could get. Luckily, in 2023, the chief appraiser got a hold of some relevant sales information, did a bunch of reappraisals, and San Angelo was valid for 2023. And even though a district is valid and you get full funding, we're still able to file a self-report appeal. And we didn't have to file a property value study appeal, but we filed a self-report appeal. And that, if you look at on page 4 of the charts, for 2023, we show that we brought in an additional $2.6 million in state aid for the school district. And that's important because a lot of districts think if they pass the property value study, then there's not any more money to be gained. But there are, by the time the roll is certified, there's a lot of corrections to the roll that happen. There could be continuing ARB hearings, could be litigation, late homestead, late ag exemptions, and of course there could be adjustments to exemptions and over 65 freezes. And so we were able to file a self-report appeal. In addition to self-report appeals, we're able to file an audit every 3 years for a school district. And so we just recently filed a 2021 audit for San Angelo, and that will end up bringing in another $210,000 approximately in state aid that the school district should get sometime around April or May of 2025. So we do these, we review them, and sometimes, many times, we can't find any additional state aid for any of the school districts. So we still review everything, but in this situation, we were able to find some corrections that will result in more funding. Now, since the district was valid in 2023, for the 2024 year, they have what's called the Methods and Assistance Program, where they look at business practices and procedures and look at the internal workings. And it's critical that the district pass this MAP review because it's one of the requirements to be eligible for grace. And in speaking with the chief appraiser, there's not going to be any problem with the map review, so everything's good there. The 2024 results of the property value study will be released January 31st of 2025. San Angelo won't have a property value study, but they still have to certify the tax roll. So again, we will look at the tax roll corrections and see if we need to file a self-report appeal. If we do, we'll contact the superintendent and get his authorization to do so. And again, sometimes we can find some money and sometimes we don't. The critical juncture is going to be for the 2025 property value study, because the district will not be eligible for grace in 2025. You have to have 2 years of grace, and they only have 2023. So the 2025 property value study, which won't be released till January 31st of 26, this is way down the road, and Tyler's got time to get to the market and analyze things and look at that. But if for some reason, say the comptroller's office analyzes the same information that Tyler's looking at and comes up with a different conclusion, we're prepared to file an appeal. We only have 40 days to file an appeal. We're the safety net. We're your safeguard. We will seek for your authorization, but we don't. Since there's only 40 days, we'll immediately start the appeal. We'll have boots on the ground. We have very senior appraisers that come out and inspect property. They're all former comptroller, property tax assistance division appraisers, so they're very familiar with the system and all that. But I'm hoping that's not a situation that we have to put up with. And we're looking forward for the 2025 study to be a valid finding. And if that comes out, you guys will be eligible for 2 years of grace. You won't have another property value study till 2027. And at that point, you would have 2 years of grace. So a lot of it is it's unknown, but I feel very confident in saying that I think you guys are in good hands. I think the appraisal district does a very good job with one arm tied behind their back, because sales information is getting so hard to find all across the state of Texas. But I think you guys are one of the lucky ones. You got a good appraisal district. You got a very active market, and I think you guys are in good shape. Is there any questions about anything about the property value study? It's kind of a unique animal.
Any questions or comments? I just want to thank y'all for y'all's work. I mean, over the years, through the appeals process, we've been able to save taxpayers dollars by y'all performing these appeals and finding dollars for us. And so, it's an important thing to look at when we're going up against the values that the comptroller provides. So, thank y'all for your work with the district.
I appreciate it. We've got a real good history here with San Angelo. We've been doing it for over 25 years, and it's been a good combination, good teamwork. And we're very proud to help you guys out and do what we can.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
And you can thank Dr. Gomez for letting you get home a little earlier. Now, we're going to do an update on academic programs, and Dr. Gomez is going to help us for an update on House Bill 1416.
Dr. Kingman, Dr. Moran, and members of the board, tonight's academic update will actually include two highlights around 1605, House Bill 1605 with instructional materials, and 1416, which replaced the prior House Bill 4545. And I really just want to spend a moment and begin with the updates to 1605 because it integrates with 1416. So if you look at this first slide here, this process for continuous improvement actually began during COVID, and it's been quite a process. But some of the things prior to House Bill 1605 that you were accustomed to from the state was the Texas Education Agency, or TEA, established the TEKS as the standard framework for curriculum and instruction. Instructional materials had to align with these standards, but school districts retained local control over material adoption and implementation. You also, in fact, y'all did this last spring, districts had statewide textbook adoption processes where there was a centralized process. We'd go through our TEKS review, and publishers would submit to TEA with a list coming out from the State Board of Education for districts to adopt from. And what was key, and still continues to be vital under the passing of the bill, is local flexibility. So districts could purchase approved materials using state funds or select non-approved materials using local resources. So that's where the money side of the house comes in, Dr. Brandon. While flexibility allowed for innovation, it sometimes led to inconsistencies in quality and alignment across districts and even across schools in the same district. So fast forward a little bit to the timeline there and the passing of House Bill 1605. Last year, you heard us begin to talk to you more and more about what is referred to as high-quality instructional materials. In fact, last spring, with the normal proclamation, we shared with you that it'd be the last time for us to go through that formal process. And we did a lot, from K-8 science to technology applications and several CTE courses, just to highlight a few. So under the passing of House Bill 1605, the bill emphasizes the provision of TA-vetted, high-quality instructional materials. And the reason behind this is to ease the burden on teachers and ensure statewide consistency in curriculum delivery. Now, if you look at this process here, we knew from our local data we had some areas we needed to address to improve instruction and opportunities for our students. We also wanted to be ahead of it so that we had a plan to ease into the transition. So you heard us first start sharing with you a slow rollout that began K-2 primary with Amplify Skills. That was in the 23-24 school year. Then we added on this year for 24-25, Amplify through all of elementary. It gets a little confusing if you're not in the classroom, because after second grade, skills, which non-educators, non-reading teachers, that's phonics, is combined. So third on up, it's not separated, and it just stands for knowledge there. So we added that in, and a slow rollout was really important because professional learning and ongoing support for our teachers was key. Unlike previous systems, with the passing of 1605, it introduces a more dynamic review process, which is super important to remain current with educational trends. And lastly, there is an opt-in framework. So this is where, from boards and making decisions, you all are super important. Districts can choose to adopt the new state-provided resources or maintain their own systems. However, those opting in do benefit from a streamlined process and state-funded resources, which will take you to this next slide. And please note, I'm pulling several of these straight from TA, using their language for you to see what's being shared. And I'm glad you have your screens, because I know that print is super small. But on the left is the traditional IMA funding that districts received, and on the right is the transition to districts receiving those state-funded resources if you opt in, the difference in funding. And so again, local districts, they can opt in and to choose to adopt or maintain their own systems. However, if you do adopt, you do benefit from state-funded resources. So with this, you're going to hear more about what is referred to as blue bonnet learning. Now, when I mentioned we've had a slow transition with Amplify, we expanded and we added on Eureka for upper elementary math this year, and high school, because again, we wanted to be able to provide support to teachers and not take on too much at one time where teachers did not have support. Those were not the Texas-specific versions. On that timeline in the very first slide, those were open educational resources available during COVID when a lot weren't in a traditional system, but it's important to Texas to be Texas-specific. So beginning with the 25-26 school year, these Bluebonnet learning resources are from the same publishers we've slowly been introducing to our teachers. The change would be these have been revised to specific Texas standards. So I've included a slide there for you in reading language arts, and then the next slide is around math. But what you will see in both content areas for Bluebonnet learning is curriculum delivery at scale, meaning these resources provide pre-designed instructional materials and lesson plans for core subjects, ensuring statewide equity and more equity in individual districts with multiple campuses. Professional development integration, which is again why our district chose to slowly roll this out, because professional development and learning is vital as we transition. Teachers with us in those content areas have received training on how to internalize the materials so that they are spending less time having to create lessons. And then one of the things that due to this funding shift as we've gone along, sorry, I'm kind of going back to the original slide, is when we first began, because the way funding was, we couldn't automatically provide print in all of those areas where we were first beginning. And so we had to first begin with some digital-only resources. But with this transition to Bluebonnet Learning, we will be providing print access in addition. So that's just very important to see as the transition and the change in the funding. So, for this final slide on this update, before a district can access funding, you must adopt an instructional material transition plan. However, if you are participating in Strong Foundation, which is a grant from the state, then that does qualify you. Our district has submitted a grant application that was submitted last week. Should we not be awarded funding, we do have a plan to present for our instructional material transition plan. We feel quite confident because of our pre-work with those resources and our slow implementation. As we were to move forward K-5 reading language arts, K-5 math, and 6 through Algebra 1 mathematics for our teachers. So that was just kind of real quick on Bluebonnet Learning. Definitely wanted you all, because you're going to hear that. But as I summarize, let me go back to this last slide. As board members, it's important that you are aware anytime you change resources, we have challenges, which I like to replace with opportunities and considerations. One of those being our district's responsibility to balance local control. While House Bill 1605 and Bluebonnet Learning, they do provide significant support, we must ensure that we retain autonomy in adapting materials. We currently have processes for this, and we would continue to do so. Now, I want to provide some clarity. By adapting materials, that doesn't mean omitting materials completely, or we lose the fidelity of the resource. However, especially in the area of RLA, and I feel like it's only fair to close out with Shelley's last board meeting that I bring up RLA and what could potentially be a controversial passage, because that happens all the time in reading language arts and English classrooms. Those things may come up, but we're committed currently and forward movement to have a process, and that's where we look at alternatives. If we're like, this is not the best, we need to stop and reflect what were the Texas essential knowledge and skills we were to be covering, and what other passage could we potentially use to meet that objective. So I just really want to stress as board members, that is a very important consideration, that we do continue to balance that local control. Another very important consideration is teacher buy-in. Anytime we're changing, it is so important, it's at the forefront of our district, that we do not want our teachers to lose the craft of teaching. We don't want master teachers to feel like that just gift of being an educator is removed. So there is something very powerful in having alignment, but you can't replace the human element of masterful teaching, and we will continue to uplift that. And lastly, for considerations is sustainability. As Bluebonnet Learning evolves, maintaining high-quality updates and equitable access will be key to our long-term success. And now, as we segue into 1416, I said I wanted to cover Bluebonnet Learning because it supports 1416. You know, those legislative updates give us new numbers to memorize and learn. So prior to what's now referred to as House Bill 1416, you heard a lot about House Bill 4545. As board members, you may have had parents, teachers, community members ask you about what's this extra help or support for students in need around state assessments. So, with the passing this past June of 24, the state put out some updates. And because 4545 had very rigid time constraints and student constraints, and Mrs. Duncan, I know that you understand this so well, as a former secondary teacher, to be required to have a 3-to-1 ratio when you have a roster of 120 to 150 students, that's a tough demand. So with this change in this bill, it gave districts some flexibility. For secondary, we were very eager to get started. However, there's no magic pill, and getting information late in the summer provided some opportunities that we needed to work through. Again, around training staff and really communicating around differentiation and scaffolding in those secondary classrooms. Specifically, we wanted to begin with reading and math. So there's a couple of screenshots in there for you. Our district chose for middle school, high school, to use a program that was on TA's approved list, which gave us even more flexibility, waived those very tight ratios, called IXL. So you may have already had some parents, maybe you were parents yourself. I don't know, maybe just people have asked you, what is this new program in secondary? So we trained very late October, like October 30th. By the time you get the new materials purchased, you get all the right people in. Those things, unfortunately, don't happen at the beginning of the school year when there's late notification from the state. Those screenshots just show you, since that short amount of time, skill proficiency already. And then it was important as board members that you knew there is access to this program in school that would count for universal instruction as part of just the regular course, or for students needing acceleration and additional time to meet the hours, depending on the state assessment area they needed to work to improve outside of the classroom as well. So both Tier 1 and Tier 2 instruction. So in this very short amount of time, you can see that yes, the majority of these have been accessing the program in school with 91%, but there has been some home usage as well. And I just want to close with this and say, you guys know what happens from November till winter break. And so since basically November, as of today, about 1:30, when I logged in on the dashboard, you can see the number of questions our secondary students have already answered. Now, I just want to point out, it says 8 schools, and some of you might be saying, well, how do we have 8 schools on there when you said this was secondary? So, to clarify, it's all middle schools, high schools, Carver, and Pays, but the 8 comes from, we had a demo and count because we were trying to learn ourselves. before we trained our teachers. And one of those fell under Austin Elementary, which is not a campus. It was a second, we couldn't use the same login for the second demo. So truly, it's not 8 schools, it's the 6 schools, all 3 middle schools, both high schools, Carver and Pays. With elementary, we elected to continue using the resource that we had been using previously because of the extension of Amplify and Eureka. We did not want teachers to learn an additional new program, and we really were in need of a resource to meet the requirement for our secondary campuses. So I know that's a whole lot of really in the weeds teaching and learning highlights for the academic update, but it was important for us that you knew the progression of Bluebonnet learning and what our district was doing to provide striving students additional levels of support. Do you have any questions that I can help with?
Any questions for Dr. Gomez?
I don't really, have a question, but this is a lot of work, a whole lot of work from the admin team here, and I appreciate that. And I love this IXL program. I love, if y'all don't know, it's, if I'm right, Farah, tell me this. Like if a kid gets it, it's like they get this number, if they miss, it goes back, it goes up. Is that the program?
Yes, so Mrs. Duncan, what's key with this program, and again, as a former secondary math teacher, I know that you can understand the need for this. It provides an explanation. So a lot of times that's what's missing. Yes, that's what's missing as we go up the grades, because we don't want students to just guess. We don't want the program to just drop down and become easier. There needs to be a feedback loop so students know why they're not getting answers correct.
I love that, and I'm hearing from some of the kids that it's like a challenge, because then they get into these debates with this. I don't know why this is doing that, but I want to reiterate what you said, that with everything that we're doing, it's the teacher that brings their skill to the table. In Texas, across the state, we're told what to teach, but we're never told how. So we're not putting teachers in a box. Teachers are still able to bring their strengths or weaknesses. And when I say weaknesses, because sometimes teaching a topic for me might be a weakness where my co-teacher isn't, and it enables us to learn from each other. So all of this is great news, and the fact that we're trying to align the district. Great news, even if we look outside our district, when children move from town to town, city to city, the state of Texas, I feel like, is trying to get where we're not losing ground. We're always looking forward and always trying to reach that goal of the knowledge that we need when we graduate. So thank you, Farah, and your team for all the support that you're giving teachers and the hours of hard work that you are doing to implement all of this.
Any further board comments or questions? Obviously, Dr. Gomez, thank you for all your work, and there'll be more to come on this as we move forward. And so we will look forward to hearing more riveting updates. All right, now we're going to move forward with our action agenda. We have consent items A through G, which is consider donations or minutes from our November 11th and November 18th meeting, bid RFP 25-09, bid 20-014, cooperative, and then consider a cooperative purchasing organization. F, consider bid 24-015 for wireless radios. And G, consider bid 24-023 on dual purpose paper. Any board questions or comments or anything that needs to be pulled from the consent items A through G? Do I have a motion for consent items A through G?
Make a motion to approve consent items A through G.
And do I have a second?
I'll second.
So I have a motion from Mr. Gallegos and a second from Dr. Mills. Any further board comments or questions? All in favor say aye. All against say the same. Consent items A through G pass. Next, we have our action items. We have consider bills, accounts, and financial statements from our November 2024 meeting. Any questions regarding our bills, accounts, and financial statements? Do I have a motion to approve our bills, accounts, and financial statements?
Dr. King, move for approval of our bills, accounts, and financial statements for November 24. In addition to that, Dr. Kingman, all these reports were reviewed in detail at our previously at our pre-agenda meeting last week. In addition to that, all this information can be found online at our website, saisd.org, and look for the financial transparency tab.
I was flipping. Did you put a motion in there too?
I did.
Okay. So there was a motion from Mr. Dindal. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
And a second from Mrs. Duncan. All in favor, or any other board comments or questions? All in favor say aye. Aye. All right, all against say the same. Motion passes 7-0. Next, we have action item B, which is consider a quarterly investment report. It's found on page 56. Our total interest earned for the first quarter was $847,000, $847.89.20. Any questions or comments regarding our quarterly investment report? Do I have a motion to approve our quarterly investment report?
Move for approval, Dr. Kingman.
A motion from Mr. Dindal. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
A second from Mrs. Mizell Flint. Any further board comments or questions? All in favor say aye. Aye. All against say the same. Motion passes 7-0. Now the one everyone's just chomping at the bit for their phone calls tomorrow about. It will do Dr. Gomez and the district calendar.
Dr. Kingman, Dr. Moran, and members of the board, I know you've received much communication over the two proposed calendar options for the 25-26 school year, including some comprehensive feedback from SAISD's CBAS committee, which also has dual membership on our district site-based decision-making committee. And one of the many tasks of this stakeholder group is to gather input to be used by administration to create calendars to present to the board for ultimate board approval. So, Dr. Kingman, I'm sure you appreciated one of the comments on there from the board members that said good luck, because that's how we feel. When it comes to creating a calendar, we just must remember we do our very best with our number one stakeholder being our students and how we can maximize instructional time. So on both calendars presented to the board for review, there's the feedback from that large stakeholder group, but they also hold true and tight to SAISD's core beliefs, including finishing the first semester before we leave for winter break, having a common spring break holiday as our local university, Angelo State, and lastly, finishing the school year by May. One of the key differences on the the key difference in the two options presented to you for consideration were around instructional planning days. So because those are so vital, I want to provide some clarity for those that don't work within the organization. Instructional planning days have been described by teachers as gold. They are not days where nothing is happening. It's time where, as internally we say, it's the gift of working on the work. We've talked earlier this evening about the craft of teaching. That takes time. And so typically in a regular work week, there's not time. There's always all the things that fill up the time, from meetings to required paperwork, and the list just goes on and on. So these aren't days where teachers are just working on that never-ending to-do list or tied up in additional meetings. These are days where educators get to come together and look at internalization, lesson design, and the creation and analysis of assessments. So instructional planning days are super important to staff, which I know you saw in several of the comments. One thing that we work really hard to do is avoid Fridays for instructional planning days, because many of our educators also support all the ways our students are smart through extracurricular. And many of those extracurricular events fall on Fridays, and those educators are teachers first. That's why you see on your calendar options instructional planning days, not on Fridays, when possible. So, the key difference between your two options, staff feedback repeatedly points out how beneficial it is for teachers to have a day after a break before receiving students. That's your difference between option A and option B around that March instructional planning day. So if I can answer any additional questions before we move forward.
And I know board, everyone received this, but just to clarify, the only difference in option A and option B is March 9th versus March 23rd. So that's really, just make sure everyone's on the same page on that.
This calendar fell beautifully. Everything aligned. Christmas was wonderful. Easter was wonderful. All those things that tend to throw wrenches when school districts are trying to adopt a calendar were beautiful. So those weren't issues. That's why there's not significant differences in your options.
Does anyone have any questions for Dr. Gomez?
Just a quick question. I keep hearing that teachers prefer to have the day after a break, so the 23rd of March is one option. So what would be the benefit of having the 9th instead of the 23rd? It's
Going back to the why behind instructional planning, it's preparation before a new grading period begins. So with the way things fall, they need one before the final grading period begins. So that's why it needs to be somewhere in March.
No, I understand that, but I'm just saying that the 23rd would do that as well, right?
Right.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So is there a reason that the 9th is an option?
Because it still provides for that. It provides for them to work in advance of the final quarter before it begins.
Okay.
So there's always, to meet that number one core belief of finishing the first semester by winter break, your first semester is shorter when you follow that model. So you have longer grading periods in the second semester. However, you have some things that come into impact, which people will provide guidance around. February tends to be a time, excuse me, as my throat now itches, where we have some illnesses. So some want that third grading period a little longer, where some argue the fourth with all the end-of-year events. So really, Ms. Mizoflant, it goes back to the need to provide that time for teachers to work on the work.
Right. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that we weren't giving up something on the 9th by approving the 23rd. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much.
Yes.
And I'll comment on that because I think, if I'm right, you're right, both. The way that I would look at that as a teacher is the 9th, if I wanted to work during spring break, I would have that time with teachers before the spring break to plan, to organize, and then I, as a teacher, if I wanted to, that would give me that week at home to do stuff, versus I'm not using my spring break for that, which is perfectly great, and I'm just going to do it and hit the ground running when I come back. So it provides exactly the same thing, just it's really a preference. Am I right on that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So thank you for your work on that, Dr. Gomez. So I need a motion to approve either option A or option B, unless anyone else has any further questions. Do I have a motion to approve one of these calendars?
I'll move to approve option B with the March 23rd off so that they have the day after the break like they requested.
A second.
All right, so I have a motion from Mrs. Mizell Flint and a second from Mr. Gallegos. Any further board questions or comments? Okay. Well, then, all in favor of option B, which is the March, just to clarify, the March 23rd day, say aye. Aye. All against, say the same. Motion passes 7-0. All right, Dr. Gomez, you're busy tonight. We are going to now do the non-business days for Public Information Act for 2025.
Yes, sir. So last year was the first year for our school district and others to adopt a PA non-business day calendar. The difference here is it doesn't follow an academic calendar. It follows a true calendar. So you all had already adopted the PIA, Public Information Act, non-business days for 2024. Now as we finish up this December and we will return in January of 2025, we need to officially adopt for the 2025 calendar year. It's very in line with what we had done this year, with what the calendar options that had been presented to you, and most importantly, those federal and state holidays pretty much drive the days that a district is going to put forward. So it's pretty self-explanatory, but it is a formal process that requires board approval. Then our communications department will post and make available to the public at their offices and our district website. I like this calendar much more than the academic calendar.
Yeah. And this, like you said, this follows mostly the weekends and the state and federal holidays and a few less than 10 designated days that coincide with our school calendar a little bit to make sure that we have we make sure we get the information. We have the people here at the facility to get the information back to our public as they request. This isn't about not giving them the information. It's about making sure that we have the staff here to get the information to them in a timely, and so that they know in advance if they need something before some of these dates that they give us that time beforehand.
You're exactly right. Many requests will require information from multiple departments, and when the business is not, or when the district is not open for business, or there's less staff working within the district, we always want to be responsive to the community. However, it does provide a burden and a hardship at times to meet those deadlines when the district is not open or staffed for traditional business hours.
So does anyone have any further questions for Dr. Gomez regarding the Public Information Act non-business days? All right, do I have a motion to approve the Public Information Act non-business days as presented?
Move for approval.
Oh, and a second from Dr. Mills because he was trying. A motion from Mr. Dindal and a second from Dr. Mills. Any further board comments or questions? All right, then all in favor say aye. All against say the same. All right, motion passes 7-0. All right, we do have some quick executive session. We're going to go in under 551.072 under real property and 551.074 under personnel matters. All right, it is 7:45. We have returned from executive session. We have taken no actions and made no votes. Our announcements are that we have a city council meeting, school board recognition on January 7th at 8:30 a.m. We have our finance and pre-agenda workshop on January 13th and our regular board meeting on January 21st. And with that, we are adjourned.